The roar was a physical wave, an earthquake made of 50,000 Roman voices, but the true master of that moment was not the gladiator, nor the crowd. The Colosseum was not a building, it was a vast, lethal machine. It was a machine that could flood the entire arena in hours for a naval battle, instantly deploy a 3-acre awning across the seats, and make a lion appear from a trapdoor with the precision of clockwork. This is the story of the hidden, ironclad control of the structure itself, the ancient world's most sophisticated and often most terrifying backstage. The key to this control was not massive walls, but its ability to manage the masses. It was the most advanced stadium for crowd control the world would see for 2,000 years. The key was the system of 80 ground-level access points, known as vomitoria, a name derived from the Latin for rapid discharge, which is precisely what they did. 76 of these entrances were numbered, corresponding to tickets issued to the general public. This meticulous numbering system, combined with a labyrinthine network of corridors, ramps, and staircases, allowed the huge flow of spectators to move to their correct seating blocks with unprecedented speed and order. The other 4 entrances were exclusive, emphasizing the sacred separation of the empire's elite from the common people. One was reserved for the emperor, another for the magistrates, and 2 led directly onto the arena floor: the gate of life for the victorious, and the ominous gate of death for the bodies of the slain. Every spectator's journey into the amphitheater was thus a lesson in social and political control. There was no chaos, no confusion. There was only the smooth, defined flow of Roman order. Yet, that order relied on a secret nobody saw. The architectural message was only half the story, because this ironclad organization was built upon a political lie, a massive public works project designed to heal a national wound. To understand the spectacle, you first have to understand the circumstances that demanded its existence. After decades of chaos following the suicide of Nero, the Roman Empire was desperate for stability and a return to traditional values. It found its savior in Vespasian, the gruff, pragmatic general who founded the Flavian dynasty. Vespasian was determined to undo the damage, both political and architectural, of his predecessor. He chose the site of Nero's hated Golden House, a massive, opulent palace that had usurped public land in the heart of Rome, and there he drove a stake into the ground. He would not just build an amphitheater, he would return the land to the people. The work began in 72 Anno Domini under Vespasian, and was completed just 8 years later by his son, Titus. The scale of the project was staggering. With an oval plan measuring 189 by 156 meters, a perimeter measuring over 545 meters, and a height that soared beyond 50 meters, this was the largest arena the world had ever seen. It could accommodate between 50,000 and 80,000 spectators, a figure comparable to the vast stadiums of the modern era. All of this was accomplished without modern steel, electricity, heavy machinery, or contemporary materials. The construction was a logistical miracle. Thousands of laborers, engineers, and artisans moved, shaped, and lifted vast quantities of travertine stone, tufa, and concrete. The amphitheater utilized 300,000 cubic meters of stone and relied on the most fundamental of forces: human power, gravity, and the genius of Roman organization. But how do you build a structure designed to contain 70,000 screaming souls? You start by building a lie, a political lie that was reflected in every single stone, column, and seat. Vespasian would not live to see its completion, but his son, Titus, finished the monument, celebrating its opening in 80 Anno Domini with 100 days of games. The structure itself was immediately recognizable as a profound statement of Roman ambition. It was divided into 4 main levels, each serving a visual and symbolic purpose. The first 3 levels were characterized by rows of arches supported by columns, an arrangement that was far from accidental. The Romans consciously deployed the 3 classical Greek orders: Doric at the base for fundamental strength, Ionic above it for balance and elegance, and the ornate Corinthian at the 3rd level. This was Rome's architectural challenge to Greek supremacy. This arrangement was a powerful rhetorical statement. Rome acknowledged the Greek cultural legacy, but by integrating and organizing it into a single, colossal structure of Roman concrete and political power, they demonstrated their ultimate dominance. The message was clear. They had taken the art of the old world and built the future. The highest level, known as the attic, was distinct. It consisted of a solid wall pierced by small rectangular windows and topped by corbelled stone brackets that supported the masts of the great awning, the velarium. The contrast between the open, elegant arches of the lower levels and the solid, authoritative wall of the attic reinforced the visual hierarchy inherent in the entire design. If the architecture of the ancient world and the secrets behind these massive constructions hold your interest, we encourage you to subscribe to the channel and join our growing community of history enthusiasts who explore the world's greatest feats of engineering. Yet, Roman order was never fair. Once inside, the building performed its final, cruel lesson. The architecture itself dictated where you stood, reminding you exactly where you belonged in the empire's rigid gaze. The seating arrangement mirrored this ironclad social structure, acting as the final architectural mechanism of control. Close to the action, occupying the privileged lowest section, near the arena floor, were the senators and the elite figures of Rome. Above them sat the equites, the equestrian class, followed by common citizens, or plebeians, whose seating was further stratified according to their economic status and profession. The location of every seat was a constant, visible reminder of one's place in the empire. At the very top, in the highest section, wooden stands often added later during the reign of Domitian were the slaves, foreigners, and women. From their lofty, distant perch, every person in the Colosseum could look down and know their precise relationship to the spectacle, to the emperor, and to the rigid social structure that governed their lives. The building itself was a mirror of Roman society, hierarchical, ruthless, and utterly organized. The Colosseum was not an isolated structure, it was the focal point of an entire urban complex of imperial power. Located nearby were the Arch of Constantine, celebrating military triumph, and the Temple of Venus and Roma, the largest temple in the city, merging state and religion. Most critically, the Colosseum was tethered to the Ludus Magnus, Rome's main gladiatorial school, by a hidden network of underground tunnels, allowing the fighters to be moved efficiently and secretly. Even the building's popular name, Colosseum, was not original. It came from the enormous Colossus of Nero, a 30-meter bronze statue originally depicting Nero that was cleverly refashioned to represent the sun god, positioning the new amphitheater literally beneath the halo of divinity. Nothing about this structure was left to chance. Everything, from the entrance vomitoria to the last wooden seat, was engineered to be a powerful political declaration. Rome did not just dominate the world, it had the capacity to organize it perfectly. While the crowds focused on the battles in the light above, the real genius of the Colosseum lay unseen, waiting in the darkness below. It was here, beneath the sand, that human ingenuity and brute strength combined to transform the greatest political stage on Earth into the world's most spectacular machine. The sand above was a stage for violence, but the true operational heart of the Flavian amphitheater was a secret world few spectators could even imagine. This underground maze, known as the Hypogeum, was the ancient world's most advanced backstage, a warren of stone and mechanics designed to turn human power into impossible spectacle. The Hypogeum, Latin for underground, was not part of the original design. It was added approximately a decade later during the reign of Domitian. This change transformed the Colosseum from a magnificent open-air arena into a complex, two-tiered engine of theatrical precision. Built of stone and concrete, this massive subterranean structure featured a confusing labyrinth of central corridors, side passages, ramps, holding cages, and movable platforms. This space was the operational core of the spectacle, where everything was prepared and coordinated out of public view, allowing for rapid and silent movements across the vast complex with direct access to hidden trapdoors on the arena floor. This entire world was sealed off and never seen, a testament to the fact that all great imperial magic requires invisible labor. The genius of the Hypogeum lay in its mechanical synchronization. From here, exotic wild animals, complex set designs, and even gladiators could be manipulated, all with a surprising level of precision. The engineering challenge was immense. How to bring something weighing hundreds of pounds, like a lion or a bear, up from 20 feet below ground, without a sound, and deliver it onto the arena floor in a matter of seconds. The key pieces of this elaborate system were the elevators, or wooden lifting platforms. These were manually operated by human power, utilizing a complex network of ropes, pulleys, and vertical winches. At least 28 elevators were installed around the perimeter of the Hypogeum. To operate a single lift cage required the coordinated, brutal force of at least 8 men. The mechanism relied on a vertical drum, the capstan. When the crew rotated this drum using long wooden levers, the coiled rope connected to the cage tightened. As the drum turned, the heavy platform slowly rose through a vertical shaft carved directly into the stone walls. The visual spectacle this created was impressive. In a matter of seconds, an enemy, a lion, a bear, or even a staged forest would appear out of nowhere, released from the subsoil through a meticulously timed system. The crowd was held captive not just by the violence, but by the relentless, unpredictable surprise. The trapdoors themselves were a crucial part of the illusion. They were managed with a combination of levers and counterweights, so that when the lift reached the precise height, the trap automatically sprung open, unleashing the animal or scene onto the sand. This instantaneous element of surprise kept the crowd in constant, screaming tension. The crowds were not just entertained, they were being continuously reset, their expectations shattered by the next incredible moment. This constant theatrical bombardment was the hallmark of imperial power. In addition to animals, the Hypogeum also housed mobile scenic platforms. Trees, fake rocks, and even small buildings were prepared in rolling sections that were designed to ascend slanted through channels within the walls. When they reached ground level, hidden workers would rotate the platforms on an axis until they aligned perfectly with the arena surface, instantly creating thematic environments for certain combats or mythological representations. This entire, enormous operation required the dedication of hundreds of specialized workers, stagehands, animal handlers, lift operators, and set designers who remained in the darkness and stifling heat of the subsoil for hours, executing changes that were entirely invisible to the public's eye. Their unseen coordination was the true engine of the Empire's spectacular power. The complexity of the Hypogeum transformed the Colosseum into much more than a place of fights. It was a theater of precision, a human and mechanical gear designed to impress, control, and entertain on an imperial scale. Yet, before this subterranean engine existed, the Colosseum was capable of staging an even more audacious spectacle, one that required engineers to challenge not just gravity, but the very nature of the arena itself. The amphitheater was born of fire and dry sand, the perfect stage for gladiator and beast. Yet for a brief, audacious window of history, this scorching field of combat became a vast, churning sea. This was the era of the Naumachiae naval battles, the ultimate, extravagant flex of Roman engineering and will, and a spectacle that remains the most challenging feat the Colosseum ever staged. These naval representations, staged during the amphitheater's first few years before the Hypogeum was built, consisted of the confrontation of ships in an artificial basin filled with water, all inside the Colosseum arena. To achieve this required an engineering feat so enormous it still generates admiration and academic debate today. Engineers had to momentarily suspend the very identity of the structure. The secret lay in the structure of the arena floor itself. Before the installation of the permanent stone subfloor of the Hypogeum, the arena was removable. It was composed of a heavy wooden platform set on temporary scaffolding structures. By removing it, a massive sunken space was released that functioned as a giant pond. Roman engineers designed a brilliant system of underground channels that connected directly to nearby aqueducts, primarily the Aqua Claudia. These aqueducts, built to supply the city with drinking water, were temporarily diverted to allow the artificial basin to be filled with enough water to sustain small, realistic boats. The water flowed from external reservoirs into conduits carved directly into the heavy concrete of the Colosseum's foundations. This water would then pass into an annular channel that surrounded the arena, from where it was carefully distributed through strategic openings towards the center of the amphitheater. The flooding process was neither fast nor simple. It was a slow, controlled ritual of power. It is estimated that the complete filling process took several hours and required precise coordination. This was the ultimate demonstration of Rome's dominance, controlling millions of gallons of water and forcing them to obey the will of the emperor, creating a sea where only sand had been minutes before. The message was not about the fighting, but the absolute control over the fundamental elements of existence. The vessels used were scale replicas of war galleys. The crews were made up of slaves, prisoners, or condemned individuals forced to fight to the death, representing famous historical sea battles. The public watched from the stands as the ships collided, were boarded, and sank in a horrifying scenario that combined real violence with historical recreation. It showed that the emperor could dominate the land, and, for a day, the sea as well. At the end of the spectacle, the water had to be evacuated quickly to allow the immediate reinstallation of the arena floor and continue with other events. For this, Roman hydraulic engineers built at least 4 large drainage channels connected directly to the vast Roman sewer system. This sophisticated system allowed the amphitheater to be emptied in a matter of hours, making way for the dry, bloody entertainment that was the Roman default. This drainage system also served a second, critical function, managing the rainwater that accumulated throughout the year, protecting the entire structure from moisture damage and structural decay. However, these naval battles ceased entirely shortly after the Hypogeum was added under Domitian. The new permanent underground system of tunnels and platforms made it fundamentally impossible to flood the Colosseum again. From then on, the Naumachii were moved to other areas of Rome built specifically for water spectacles. Although the naval representations were relatively brief in the history of the Colosseum, they left a deep mark on the collective imagination. They symbolized Rome's dominion over water, time, and death. And the most astonishing thing is that all this was achieved without pumps, without electricity, only with the harnessed power of gravity, hydraulic engineering, and the unrelenting imperial will to impress. But the spectacle was not yet complete. The emperor still had to conquer the Sunday. The arena floor, whether dry or flooded, was subject to the elements. The vast seating bowl, holding up to 80,000 people, was an enormous, heat-amplifying oven under the Roman Sunday. The heat radiated off the white travertine stone and marble, threatening to turn the grand spectacle into a test of endurance. But the emperors could not simply allow their citizens to suffer. For the Romans, true imperial power meant controlling not just men and beasts, but even the skies. This necessitated the construction and deployment of the velarium, a gigantic retractable covering that protected the public from the Sunday. The Colosseum's roof was a massive engineering undertaking, a piece of technology as sophisticated as any of the naval galleys Rome deployed. The velarium itself consisted of enormous strips of cloth, generally heavy linen, attached to a vast network of masts and ropes that extended over the upper stands. Its primary purpose was to reduce direct exposure to the sun during the hottest months, especially the notorious Roman summers. Crucially, the system did not cover the entire arena, which was deliberately left exposed for the fights, but it offered partial shade to tens of thousands of spectators, easing the heat and ensuring comfort, a subtle but potent demonstration of imperial care. Deploying and managing the velarium required a silent, highly specialized legion drawn from the imperial fleet. This was the navy, not the army, that provided the manpower. More than 200 specialized sailors, probably recruited from the imperial fleet stationed in Misenum, were required to coordinate this effort. They were the sky crew, the unsung masters of the greatest roof ever conceived. These operators worked from outside the Colosseum walls, using towers and external platforms designed specifically for this purpose. They manipulated ropes, pulleys, and counterweights, applying the very same nautical skills used to manage the vast sails of a warship. Each section of the heavy awning was rolled into rotating drums and extended by means of powerful winches. The center of the entire system relied on a heavy ring of ropes that rose and descended like a complex, floating roof. This entirely manual mechanism was comparable in complexity to the sail systems of a Roman trireme. The entire deployment of the Velarium was a stunning display of coordinated effort and technical ingenuity, executed by a specialist crew whose work was essential yet almost completely ignored by the roaring crowd below. The system was a dramatic demonstration that the Emperor's power extended beyond the battlefield to control even the elements, offering shade to 80,000 people. It was a visible sign that the sovereign could alleviate the misery of the natural world, reinforcing his divine authority. Beyond the awning, the spectacles backstage demanded constant, invisible coordination. Hundreds of people worked behind the scenes: platform operators, animal caretakers, set designers, and security personnel. The Hypogeum, the control center, functioned as a logistical nexus where everything was timed to the millisecond. This level of precision was no accident. The Colosseum was a political and social tool. Every event reinforced the emperor's power and the idea that Rome was capable of dominating everything, even nature. There was no room for error, as error would suggest weakness in the imperial will. Return to the orchestrated, millimeter-perfect chaos of a day of games, the gladiators, the public executions, the hunts of exotic animals. The system was seamless. The Velarium offered shade, the Vomitoria ensured order, and the Hypogeum delivered terror and surprise on cue. The machine was perfect. The screams faded, the crowds left. The empire eventually fell. But the machine of stone and purpose, the Colosseum, remained. The entire structure was a calculated, colossal effort designed to show order, control, and superiority. Every wild beast brought from Africa, every battle recreation, and every hand-to-hand duel was engineered to reinforce the emperor's power. This final section is a moment to recognize the engineering brilliance of the Roman mind. The Colosseum was the nexus of the empire's logistical ingenuity. It connected the three major systems: the Hypogeum's timing, the seamless entry of the gladiators via the Ludus Magnus tunnel, and the Velarium's elemental control into one single, functioning organ of entertainment and power. It was a technological ecosystem, but the Colosseum's final, greatest engineering feat was simply its survival. Although the amphitheater ceased to function as a venue for games around the 6th century, its structure withstood the ravages of time and human neglect. It endured major earthquakes which tested the strength of its innovative concrete structure. It survived centuries of looting, where its marble facings and iron clamps were stripped away to be used for new building projects across Rome. Even in abandonment, its sheer mass and foundational genius preserved it. The massive stone foundation and the innovative use of Roman concrete gave the structure a resilience that few other imperial buildings could match. Today, more than 1,900 years later, it still stands in the heart of Rome as a colossal, silent testament to the technical ingenuity of a civilization that understood better than any other that architecture is built not only with stone but also with political purpose. The Colosseum is a permanent, silent declaration of the sheer will and technical ingenuity of the Flavian Empire. It is not just a ruin, it is a historical artifact that explains Roman society, politics, and power more clearly than any written scroll. The structure itself is a victory over time. It proves that the most powerful legacies are built with concrete, organization, and a ruthless commitment to control. If you enjoyed this detailed look into Roman engineering, please share this video with someone else who loves history, or leave a comment below with a historical topic you would like us to explore next. The sand above was a stage for violence, but the true operational heart of the Flavian amphitheater was a secret world few spectators could even imagine. This underground maze, known as the Hypogeum, was the ancient world's most advanced backstage, a warren of stone and mechanics designed to turn human power into impossible spectacle.